What happened to Queen Mary's greatest treasures? Queen Mary built the greatest royal jewellery collection Britain has ever known. She rescued jewels from revolution, preserved imperial treasures, and believed, fiercely, that royal jewels were not possessions, but history. Yet today, some of the jewels she cherished most are gone, not worn, and not protected in the vaults she filled so carefully. Among them, the Cambridge Sapphire Parure, shattered and sold at auction. A Russian Diamond Sautoir, last seen in 2012, locked away in silence. Tiara conversions never worn again, brooches resting unseen for decades, and perhaps most heartbreakingly were the Mount Stephen Necklace, a masterpiece of 34 large diamonds, each between 4 and 8 carats, set in silver around 1900. A necklace Queen Mary loved deeply, wore proudly, and believed should remain forever in the royal vaults. Instead, it was sold, painfully and publicly, by Princess Margaret's children, breaking apart yet another jewel Queen Mary had guarded all her life. Tonight we're telling the stories of the jewels Queen Mary lost that were never meant to disappear. The Cambridge Sapphire Parure. Imagine sapphires so steeped in royal history that they once belonged to the grandmother of Queen Mary of Teck, jewels meant to remain within the highest royal circles, preserved as a legacy rather than possessions. Yet Queen Mary herself never had the chance to truly enjoy these sapphires. Instead, believing she was safeguarding their future, Queen Mary gifted the Cambridge Sapphire Parure to her beloved goddaughter, convinced it would remain within the royal family for generations. What she could never have foreseen was that she would never see these jewels again, and that they would ultimately vanish into the anonymity of auction houses, victims of circumstance rather than choice. The Cambridge Sapphire Parure was created in the second half of the 19th century by unknown master jewellers. Queen Mary inherited the sapphires from her aunt and godmother, Princess Augusta, who had received them from her own mother, the Duchess of Cambridge. The original parure consisted of 3 magnificent elements: a sapphire tiara, a necklace, and a grand stomacher. These breathtaking Cambridge Sapphire Parure was presented in 1934 as a wedding gift to Queen Mary's goddaughter, Princess Marina of Greece and Denmark, upon her marriage to her son. It was a gesture of trust, affection, and legacy. But history intervened. After Princess Marina's death in 1968, the parure passed to her eldest son, Edward, Duke of Kent. Faced with financial pressures, the Kent family made the heartbreaking decision to sell the jewels. The original tiara, set in a diamond prong design crowned with sapphires, disappeared first. The necklace, the stomacher, and likely 1 or more brooches followed, sold off in separate transactions. The Cambridge Sapphire Parure, a 182-year-old royal heirloom inherited by Queen Mary, was broken apart and sold at auction not once, but twice. Queen Mary's Diamond Sautoir Necklace, a diamond sautoir with a history stretching back to 1874 and direct links to Empress Maria Alexandrovna of Russia, is today effectively lost to public view. Not sold, not auctioned, but strangely hidden for decades inside the British royal vaults. Yes, the British vaults. The story begins with the marriage of Duchess Marie of Mecklenburg-Schwerin to Grand Duke Vladimir Alexandrovich of Russia. Among her wedding jewels was a spectacular diamond Rivier, composed of 38 diamond collets, 14 of the largest sourced abroad, an unmistakable statement of imperial power. After her death, the diamond Rivier passed to her only daughter, Grand Duchess Elena Vladimirovna, later Princess Nicholas of Greece. Exiled and financially strained, she sold her only 2 most important jewels to Queen Mary of the United Kingdom, the legendary Vladimir Tiara and the diamond Rivier. And so the necklace crossed from fallen Russian imperial splendour into British royal ownership, and Queen Mary adored it, hoping the same for future queens. In 1928, she commissioned A. Cincinnic to transform the Rivier into something even more dramatic, a diamond sautoir. Ingeniously designed, it could be divided into 2 necklaces of varying lengths, one with 19 large diamonds, the other with 10. Queen Mary wore the sautoir often enough that it became immortalised in royal portraiture. After her death, the Diamond Sautoir passed to Queen Elizabeth II. But here, the story grows quiet. Elizabeth never seemed to favour the jewel. She preferred shorter, more structured necklaces and famously adjusted long pieces, including the Nizam of Hyderabad necklace and the South African diamonds, to suit her taste. Long chains, she once remarked, get in the soup. And so, the Sautoir disappeared from view, photographed for Hugh Roberts, The Queen's Diamonds in 2012. Since then, it has remained unseen, resting silently in the royal vaults, intact and waiting. It is high time the vaults opened. We are hoping for a big treat from Queen Camilla, maybe. Queen Mary's Amethyst Necklace. Queen Mary assembled much of the British royal family's most spectacular jewellery collection, rescuing historic pieces from obscurity and securing them for the royal vaults. Yet not every jewel she gathered was destined to remain there. This parure is one of the rare and troubling exceptions, a royal jewel that slipped entirely out of the family's hands and into the world beyond the crown, eventually resurfacing in the most unexpected of places. In 1898, Queen Mary inherited a splendid parure composed of a tiara, a necklace, and a pair of earrings, bequeathed to her by Princess Catherine of Württemberg. Queen Mary was not photographed wearing the tiara in the late 1930s and throughout the 1940s, recognising its elegance and historical weight. Then, following Queen Mary's death, the jewel quietly changed course. The parure passed first to Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and then to Princess Margaret. Curiously, neither woman was ever photographed wearing it. Instead, the jewel vanished discreetly from royal life, reportedly sold privately to settle personal debts. By the 1980s, the parure had left royal ownership entirely and entered the possession of Rorik Ravel, a British and American media executive. His wife famously wore the tiara for their wedding in 1983. Ravel later stated, "As far as I know, Princess Margaret inherited it directly from the Queen Mother. She sold it in the early 80s, when her mother was still alive." Yet one piece would resurface in a moment no one could have predicted. The necklace from the parure re-emerged in 2018, worn by Anna Wintour, when Queen Elizabeth II stunned the fashion world by sitting front row with Vogue's editor-in-chief at London Fashion Week. A royal jewel once assembled by Queen Mary for the crown, now worn by one of fashion's most powerful figures. Queen Mary's Sapphire Diamond Cluster Brooch. This sapphire cluster brooch belonged to Queen Mary, yet curiously, it has never been seen on any other senior royal, unlike the far more familiar Albert sapphire brooch or the Russian sapphire brooch. What makes this piece even more intriguing is that it was a coronation-era jewel. In 1911, just 3 weeks after the coronation of King George V and Queen Mary in London, the royal couple visited Aberystwyth. On that occasion, Queen Mary debuted a striking new brooch. Contemporary press reports described a round, faceted and highly important sapphire set amid 4 diamond-set bows, positioned between 4 large diamonds. The brooch was also mounted onto a sunray-style diamond Bando tiara, a piece Queen Mary had purchased from the estate of the late Empress Maria Feodorovna of Russia. The all-diamond Bando itself was an exceptional example of early 20th century design. Following Queen Mary's death in 1953, the Bando tiara passed to Queen Elizabeth II. Although Elizabeth never wore the Bando publicly, she retained ownership of it throughout her reign. The sapphire bow cluster brooch, however, took a different path. Queen Mary gifted the brooch to Princess Margaret, who wore it frequently in the later part of her life, both as a standalone brooch and, on occasion, mounted into a tiara loaned to her by the Queen. Yet after Princess Margaret, both pieces seemed to fall into silence. The Bando tiara has never been seen on any royal since. The sapphire cluster brooch has never appeared on Serachuto, and notably, it has never appeared at auction either. Today, both pieces appear to remain hidden, preserved but unseen. There is hope, however. One can imagine the Bando re-emerging on the Princess of Wales, perhaps refitted with a new gemstone. These are jewels once owned by Queen Mary, not destroyed, not sold, but lost through division and silence, resting in the darkest corners of the royal vaults. And the sapphire brooch is not alone. Another jewel belonging to Queen Mary has remained hidden for decades, an exquisite Fabergé brooch, designed around 1909. It was a gift from Tsar Nicholas II of Russia and Empress Alexandra Feodorovna, presented during the Russian imperial family's visit to England for Cowes Week in August 1909. The brooch features a rare purple amethyst, set in silver as a pendant jewel, with a large single full-cut stone in an open mount, topped by a jewelled ribbon bow. Weighing approximately half an ounce, it is a superb and deeply symbolic example of Fabergé craftsmanship. Today, the brooch is held by the Royal Collection Trust and has never been worn by any royal other than Queen Mary herself. If modern tastes now favour diamonds over coloured stones, then at the very least this extraordinary piece deserves to be loaned to museums, to be seen, studied and admired. Because jewels like these were never meant to disappear. Queen Mary's Westminster Laurel Leaf Bando Tiara, a delicate diamond necklace conversion that seems to have vanished into the royal vaults. Yes, a refined, understated piece, redesigned by Queen Mary into a bandeau-style tiara, and worn frequently during her early years of marriage, long before she became queen. It was never meant to be grand or theatrical. Instead, it was quiet, elegant, and perfectly suited to a duchess or young princess. The very reason it feels like an ideal future piece for Princess Charlotte. So what happened? Why has it never been seen again on any royal? The story begins with a gift. The necklace was presented to Mary by the first Duke of Westminster, one of the wealthiest men in Britain. To mark the occasion, he gifted the young princess a jewelled necklace, a piece defined by laurel leaf motifs, delicately interspersed between larger diamonds. As was so often the case, Queen Mary transformed it. She had the necklace mounted onto a frame so it could be worn as a bandeau tiara, with the larger diamonds encased in refined geometric settings as part of the conversion. The result was subtle, modern, and entirely in keeping with Mary's evolving style. Photographs from the period show Queen Mary wearing the tiara frequently, often alongside another important jewel created for her that same year, the Cullinan 3 and 4 brooch made by Carrington. Following Queen Mary's death in 1953, the diamond necklace tiara conversion passed to Queen Elizabeth II, where it has remained ever since, unseen, unaltered, and resting quietly in the palace vaults. Queen Mary's Diamond Lozenge Bandeau. The Cartier Diamond Lozenge Bandeau Tiara was acquired by Queen Aziza of Pahang in the late 1980s on the advice of Princess Chulabhorn of Thailand, who purchased the tiara and arranged for it to be shipped from New York. Imagine a tiara that once belonged to Queen Mary, commissioned shortly before or during the First World War, a piece of refined Cartier brilliance that quietly slipped from British royal history. The diamond lozenge bandeau was never designed to be ostentatious. Its geometric lozenge pattern reflected early 20th century modernity, and Queen Mary often wore it crowned with pearls. In 1948, a newly 18-year-old Princess Margaret wore the diamond lozenge bandeau as her first tiara, appearing in it at the celebrated Sports Fantasy Gala. The timing strongly suggests it was an 18th birthday gift from Queen Mary, intimate, symbolic, and deeply personal. And then, it vanished. By the late 1970s or early 1980s, around the same period that Queen Mary's amethyst tiara was discreetly sold, it is widely believed that Princess Margaret quietly sold the diamond lozenge bandeau as well, without public announcement, photographs, or acknowledgement. The tiara simply disappeared from the British royal vaults. For decades, its whereabouts remained a mystery, until the late 1980s. That was when the tiara resurfaced, not at auction, not in scandal, but within another royal family. Acquired by Tengku Ampuan, Queen Azizah of Pahang, the Cartier Bando entered Malaysian royal ownership, where it has remained for the past 36 years. The Cartier creation was not destroyed, it simply found new royal custodians. Once a jewel of Queen Mary, a tiara with 110 years of royal history, long lost from the British vaults, but never truly lost at all. That's all for today. Let us know your thoughts. Were these jewels ever meant to leave the vaults, or be sold at all? Or do you believe they should have remained with the British royal bloodline, worn and remembered rather than hidden or dispersed? And before you go, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow our channel for more royal jewel stories you won't find anywhere else.